Yeah, Connie and Nick, if you wouldn't mind going first, I'm going to just try to pull everything together.
All right, awesome. Well, hi y'all. Let's go ahead and get started with our demos for this week. And what we did was issues 8 and 9 or 7 and 8. Now I can't remember. 7 and 8 probably, right? Because even numbers. All right, so let's do demo 7 first. It's numerical.
Is that us? Yeah. All right, I can share my screen. So our user story was to show a prompt when your shopping list is empty. So here I don't have a token, so I'm just going to create a new list. And then it just shows this little message. Your shopping list is currently empty. Right now, we've just kept this as a button, but I think we might refactor that later into like a link. But for our code, very simple, just in the shopping list, we added a check here when we're rendering the component to check the response from Firebase that it's not loading, and then checks in the array that's returned. There's actually a property on it that Firebase provides, which is nice, this .empty property. So we just check if that is true or false. If it's true that it's empty, then we display the message. If not, then we render the list items from Firebase.
Great.
Also, just a quick note, I was very late in answering a question from Andrew on this, but for the list items, it's actually, I think that it's technically not an array, it's the snapshot, and then the .empty is a Boolean that's provided by Firebase, and then we make the array by doing .docs.
Yeah, sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah, just Andrew had commented on that, so.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that .empty was a Firebase specific. I think I've used Lodash too many times. So I just, like, my brain didn't register. So I know I commented on Andrew and Sheila's PR regarding their use of update. But seriously, like, hats off, like, you guys finding these little tools that exist within, or these functions and methods that exist on the tool you're using is really great work. Nice job.
Yeah, just any other questions? I know we're like trying to keep it brief, and this week it was very brief, smaller feature, so. All right, cool.
Great, thank you, nice job. And Andrew, sorry, you're on your own today on this one.
That's okay. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
So our task this week was to just create the ability for the user to check off items on the shopping list, which would update things in the database to add the recently purchased date and the number of times that the item was purchased. So I just have a new list here, and basically you can check things off. Now, because of the way that things are supposed to work down the line, one of the requirements was that once things are checked off, you can't check them off again. So we kind of, for right now, the button is disabled. We've had some conversations about maybe changing the functionality or adding things, but after 24 hours, it will become enabled again. And let's see, I'll show you what's going on in the database a little bit. So this is the list here in Firestore, and I'm just going to refresh this. And I think some of the items that I just added, you can see that there's now a purchase date and a number of purchases, and it's been updated. So if I were to change this last purchase date for tofu, sorry, I'm Canadian. I get really tripped up by dates in this format. I'm just going to do it like that. And update that, then it would again be available and we could check it off. And now there are 2 purchases. So what's going on in the code? We basically added a function handled check in the shopping list component that can just be called by any of the list items. And it basically goes into the database and uses some of these built-in Firestore operations, the server timestamp and the increment. And over in the list item component, we have a little check to make sure we have a recently purchased state variable that gets updated when anything changes to basically indicate whether something's been purchased within 24 hours. And then we can use that to change some things in here. And I'll also really quickly show this little is under 24 hours since purchased. I mean, maybe we'll change this. We didn't have a lot of time to connect this week over maybe adding some kind of date. Oh, library. But we made this little simple function that just basically gets, the format that goes into the database is like the universal timestamp format. So it's, the Unix number of seconds since the beginning of time, 1970, et cetera. So that's why we're basically just comparing number of seconds. So 24, 60, 60 is the number of seconds in 24 hours. We're basically seeing if the current timestamp and the one we get from the database is that's different. And I think, Connie, you'd asked about why we use, let me see if I can find it in here. Oh yeah, here, why we use seconds. So when we get that property back from the database here, last purchase date, it's a weird Firestore object that has the property of seconds and I think milliseconds as well. It's not like just a simple number, or it's formatted in this very specific way. So seconds just gave us the seconds, which was going to be universally easy to convert into anything. So that's pretty much it. If there's any questions.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Yanli, but oftentimes time is measured in seconds, is it not? Just for that consistency factor, and then it gets translated however you need to, just as you did.
Yeah. At my current gig, yeah, we actually use the number value, which when testing was really shitty, or when doing sorting. Yeah, I was doing a sorting with a nested object, and I was like, I have a hard time testing if I'm not sure if this is right. So what Ander have done for saving that and making it visually like easy to look and be like, oh, that's the date. Last cohort or the one before, I had to use a converter every time to translate that. So this is these are really good choices here. And I think I didn't point it out before, but the optional chaining right here, it's pretty neat. You can do it with method function calls too. I'll share a link in the chat, something to look into, but my team uses a lot. So when I joined the code base, it's like, this is everywhere. That question mark dot is something that's pretty cool, but it makes me like a what for a second there sometimes. But we are on TypeScript, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I really like it as well, but also it's TypeScript. And so it saves me from having to do a null check prior to using the item. I can just put that null check within the inline of it by putting that on there. So it's nice.
Yeah.
I also, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I really like the use of seconds for time. I believe it was like 6 months ago, actually over a year now. There was a fintech company, like a trading company, that did not use seconds. And for it was a leap year. And on that day, it broke the app and nobody could complete trades. And it had to be like a day where things were running in an upward direction and completely like ruined the app and user base for them. So good call in the second.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we started out with, just a number as well, and then used built-in Firebase support where we could kind of see easily in the database what we were changing. But yeah, that's a good thing for whoever tackles down the line. I know we're going to have to print out item details and format those dates. So it's always a kind of a problem in computer science, like what is time, relative to where someone is, the location, and you would want to make sure to consider, you might be right, you might have a server that's running in a different time zone than where the user's operating. So you don't want the operations to be different. So that's why we have those, like the universal kind of timestamp. And from that, and from like the number of seconds, it should be pretty straightforward to take that and convert it into any kind of JavaScript or JavaScript library thing that we need. So just something to note for the, everyone on the team who might be tackling time in the future.
Great. I think the only other comment I had was very, very minor, just in regards to naming it specifically in regards to 24 hours. I might recommend that the name of the function be a little more generalized in case that timeline changes ever somewhere along the line. And I know for the instances of this application, that's not really relevant, but it's always nice to keep those neutral so you don't have to go in and replace all the uses of that if you change the name of it at some point. Like if it suddenly becomes, we're going to leave it there for 48 hours instead.
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe that will change. That's why we said recently purchased for the state variable instead of something more specific. But mostly that was just to try to make sure, because it was working with time, that people on the team understood what specifically that little like util function was doing.
Right.
But yeah, we might want to, modify some things down the line for sure.
Yeah, like that's just kind of a little bit more of a nit, just pointing it out. Like again, in this circumstance, it's not a big deal, but in a larger code base under larger circumstances, trying to keep those names neutral is really helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Really nicely done. All right, I think, unless anybody else has additional questions, I think we are ready to move on to retros.
All right, I have posted a link to the retro board in the Zoom chat. We're going to take 10 minutes again to post some appreciations from the sprint, what went well, what could be improved, and then we'll briefly go over them after this 10 minutes. give everybody a minute or two more. Does anybody need more time? All right. So I'm going to then get us started with the, did it just clear out for everybody else?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know what just happened.
What? Maybe go.
GitHub is down.
Maybe.
GitHub down at
That's
some point like,
strange.
the past like week.
Could be, but I.
Oh,
There we
nice.
go.
There we go.
All right, we'll take it. All right, so I'm going to start us off with the appreciations. It just happens to be that I'm the first one, so I just wanted to give a shout out and let you know that I appreciate how much of a priority accessibility has been for the team. My knowledge is admittedly very much lacking in that field, and so this has been a great learning opportunity for myself as well. And I have a feeling I will be saying this again in the future. Connie, looks like you're next.
Yep, I appreciate everyone's eye for detail and thinking about the future. Yeah, it's much appreciated. I'm just used to a lot of like in our boot camp, it's a lot of looks good to me for PRs. So I appreciate, actually the care that goes into PRs and everything really.
Nick?
Yeah, so I was just thanking everyone for helping me this last week because I was really busy outside of TCL and didn't have as much time. So, but everyone was really helpful when I had questions, and also thanks to Connie for finishing up our PR after some feedback.
Great. Ender.
Sorry, I have to look at the actual GitHub or I can't see it. I think, yeah, I put thank you to the mentors for taking time in code review and during office hours to share knowledge.
Right on. April.
Yeah, I've just really enjoyed the PR discussions. The willingness that everybody's shown to receive and give feedback has been really phenomenal. It's a hard thing to do sometimes, to put your work out there and have it quote judged. And you guys have been really gracious and helpful, and it's been really fun to watch.
Yenli.
Everybody's engagement and willingness to work more in the open. I know it's like a adjustment to do to like, why am I doing this? So yeah, I'm seeing more. So it's great.
Good. Ender again.
Yeah, I think there have been maybe more in the sprint right before this, but I feel like there's been more active team communication and participation and that sort of thing. I think we're all kind of had a lot of stuff going on this week and simple issues, but in general, I think that's been going really well.
Yenli, you want to go again?
Want to call out April and Cameron on like the wonderful learning module presentations you're doing. Like you're making it really easy for me for this cohort. You two are doing really great. And April, really love your in-depth co-reviews and the recommendations. You really, I think it's really, really stellar.
Thank you.
I wanted to show appreciation to Yenli and April for jumping in with excellent answers this week, in particular to a question that I didn't have answers to. So again, learned something there. Thank you. And then Connie.
Yeah, I appreciate you all. Whenever you do have suggestions, you actually write out the code. Again, I'm like used to like looks good to me, or like, did you do it this way without actually writing the code? And I know that takes time. So I really do appreciate you all taking the time to do that.
And then let's move on to what went well. Let's start off with Yenli.
Really great questions during office hours. We had really good discussions. I definitely think some of the accessibility things like Ender, I think you know more than all of us right now.
Nick.
Yeah, so I saw everyone else commenting about conversations, and I just want to say again, they've been really helpful in just making sure, for me, it's just really helpful in making sure I understand everything about what's going on in the project, and everyone's staying on the same page. So,
Ander.
Yeah, it's been really great to get more feedback and communication from team members. And I know it's difficult with all of our schedules. So yeah, that's been helpful.
I think that the discussions you all are having around issues or goals for your project that are not defined by TCL are going really well. Everybody seems open to listening and talking about it, and you're not overdoing or overexerting yourself on things. So I think that's great. Yenli?
I think all the fantastic co-review conversations, like all the discussions and recommendations, and it's really great. And the use of discussions is working really well too. Like knowing when to say, hey, I want to comment on this, but it doesn't pertain to the PR, and then let's move it to discussion. Those are really good skills to have as author and as reviewer. So good job on that.
Connie?
Yeah. Basically, I've just like learned so much from the code reviews, and I really feel like it's leveling up my programming skills, because I've been in other kind of developer cohorts, and again, a lot of times it's like other junior developers reviewing your code, so they don't always have the knowledge to be like, oh, you should do it this way, it's better practice, etc. So I really feel like my programming skills have really been refined from like junior kind of embarrassing code that I've written sometimes to like really, I think, more production ready, like professional programming and code. So I really appreciate that and everyone's input.
That's awesome. Looks like you are the next one as well.
Yeah, I agree with like creating separate issues for things instead of, letting it get tied down in the PR or block the user story. That's been working out really well. And now we have an awesome backlog of a bunch of good enhancements that we can make.
And April.
Yeah, I mean, just reiterating just the use of the methods and things afforded to you by your tools. It's really easy to just say, oh, there's a library for that, or oh, there's a tool that does that, and then just barely skim the surface of the opportunities that are available within it. And so like the dive into the documentation to really find ways to make that tool work for you is been really great.
Let's jump to what could be improved. And it looks like, Connie, I probably should have read this one first.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if we could do like more of a sandwiching of the retro. So like positive, and then what could be improved, and then like what went well or appreciate, that way we're kind of ending on a positive note.
Yeah, that's great feedback. Good idea. Ander?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally things have been going pretty well, but probably like being able to wrap up code reviews sooner. Like I think there has been more communication, but just that process can take a while, and like slow down the rest of the week.
Connie.
Yeah, I think I could personally do a better job of, because like I'll comment on the other team's PR, and a lot of times there's responses to that I don't always get caught up on. I don't know if I do get notified, but there's a lot of emails and a lot of notifications. So I could definitely do a better job of like catching up on that before we meet on Sundays. So I'm kind of caught up with the conversation.
Connie, you are the next one as well.
This one, I personally would like to read ahead with the user story so I know kind of what I'm building. And I don't know if this is something maybe for the broader TCL like curriculum, but you know, a lot of times there's like overall grooming sessions at the beginning before you kind of start a development project. So you know, and I know we kind of did that to a certain degree, but I think I need to get a better picture of like what the big picture is, so I understand what these features are doing and just be more forward thinking. And I'm just used to the whole like development life cycle where it's like you got grooming at the beginning and it's like, here's what we're building. We kind of did that. I don't know, it's probably a personal thing. I need to just read ahead with the user stories.
Ander.
Yeah, so I think we're all doing, I think, a better job. I know I'm better wrapping my head around how all of these different conversations happen in GitHub, because this degree of communication there is not something that I've ever done before. So I think generally that's going really well. And now we have discussions and that's really great. But this might be like just more me, but I'm still, having to try to remember to check there and follow up because I don't get notifications, and I've got to find if there's like a setting for it. It seems like that's a place where conversations sometimes will get started, but then trail off. And I'm not sure if everyone like is aware of it or follows, or if we have a good flow. But there are also things that are usually kind of extra too. So it's not like a super important thing, just something that I know I need to factor in.
Nick.
Just real quick on the discussions. Like when I do those, I try and tag relevant people by doing like how you would tag in a normal thing. I don't know if that notifies them in some way or not, but I guess we should keep in mind. Oh, and I'll also echo what Andrew was saying about trying to prioritize the reviews. I think we talked about this last week of how it's important to try and get to those, even if you're still working on your issue, because it's, gets the whole team workflow moving forward.
This seems to be a common theme for us, but being better at responding to GitHub. I did actually go in and check today and notice that all of my notifications were off. So hopefully this changes. So there is a setting, and Ander, if you want to go through it at some point, or Connie or Nick, by all means reach out and we can step through that. Yenli.
I think it's great that everybody is working out in open more, but I think you can also do more, right? I think the other part, as someone who's checking in during the week, it's important to let others know where you need support, whether you're going to have a busy week and where your learning is at. I think as overall, if you get a sense of where your teammate is, you know how to jump in and help. So I do see that there's still opportunity there. Like if you're having a busy week, let people know, and it's okay. And also for GitHub, this is part of the, I think it's just part of working and finding a workflow and what works for you. There are many places for communication, and conversations can thread in so many different ways. So a lot of times you have to be proactive about checking your notifications. Sometimes I always open up the notification window of GitHub because I don't have any, they don't send me any emails at all. So I would check there. But then there are lots of other different ways to communicate. yeah, I think that's it. Try not to ramble too much. But yeah, I
Connie?
really want to, yeah, sorry, just really want to highlight, like, if you let people know where your learning is, like your manager or the person who's leading you can help fill in that gap. Okay, I'm done.
Connie?
I wrote this early on, but it's actually positive. You can probably move it over to what went well. But I do think that we have improved on everything from our last retro. So you can move that over to what went well. But shout out to all of us for improving since our last retro. So
Let's see here. April.
Yeah, I think just reiterating what's kind of already been mentioned, just trying to get those peer reviews in closer, you know, by at the latest, like end of Thursday. It just gives the mentors a chance to kind of go through and if they're going to make any suggestions for you all to have some time to think about those or implement them without feeling rushed and trying to get it in before like the Sunday demo. So yeah, just definitely, but I want to reiterate to Connie's point, like there has been significant improvement. So this is just a, you know, let's take it one more step.
And then I'm gonna wrap it up, but this is kind of a personal one. I know that I could improve on balancing my time for Collab Lab more. I tend to ebb and flow as to I seem to have a ton of time and then I seem to like just disappear. So if I can figure out a way to make that a little bit better. But thank you all for going through this with us and doing this with us. I think we as mentors learn a lot from it as to what you all think is going well or is not. So this is helpful for us. If you wanted to open a larger discussion about anything that we have and what could be improved, we can do it in discussions or office hours or something along those lines. This doesn't have to be the end of these topics.
I think one, we haven't done it yet, but sometimes depending on what can be improved, to end it on a positive note, is to add a column for action items. You know, in terms of as a team, what can we do to help with certain areas that need improvement, right? Like this coming week, potentially, maybe it's only going to be 3 of you working instead of 4. So this mirrors what will happen in a real team, right? Like not everybody's going to be present. People will be on vacation, especially with 2020, life happens. So then what happens? So so a lot of times we can identify that as well as part of the retro, but it's not a must. So just putting it out there.
I'm going to stop sharing. The board will still be on GitHub if you wanted to review it at some point again.
Yeah. Thank you, Cameron.
Yeah, I know just in regards to the notifications, like that's kind of that mixed sword, like, or mixed blessing, I guess. You turn your notifications on and then you get so many, you're drowning in them and then everything gets lost, or you don't have them on and you don't find them. So I know I do similar to Yenli, where I just kind of set up my own personal workflow. And if I know I'm working on a project or something, I either both keep a little bit more of an awareness to notifications that come from that repo, or I just make it a point to kind of schedule within my week or my day to just touch base and, you know, look over on that discussion tab, see if there's anything that I need to comment on, or look through the PRs to see what the status is, and so forth. So if you're struggling to kind of keep up with it all, maybe just kind of not relying on the automated notifications, but finding your own rhythm helps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that, finding your own rhythm. Like it is definitely what workflow works for you, mm-hmm. to have a certain engagement, but noise is down. I think that's like overall everybody, every developer struggle, and even the most senior will sometimes be like, I can't deal with this. And you'll hear it too. Nick?
I was just gonna add like one thing that I do sometimes, and I do this at my normal job too, when I have I'm trying to get something done, there's a lot of emails and stuff coming in. I just ignore everything, and then like when I have an hour, just look at everything in order at once. That really works for me.
Yeah.
I have a question. I feel like sometimes when I look at a PR, so when I go to files changed, it has the comments there, but then like on the conversation view, some of them are not there. Where should I be looking? Because I feel like I'm missing comments sometimes.
So you look in both places. One habit to do is when you first open a PR, you look into conversations, just a general overview of what the PR covers, also what people have brought up, because that's like the overall scheme of what the conversation is. And then you click into the file changes, and then you look at the individual files and then see where the comments are. So it's a matter of managing back and forth so that you understand. So it is, that's why cognitive load is a factor in terms of how you, when you're creating your PR. For my team, we make an effort to make PRs as small as possible, meaningful small PRs, so that it's easy for people to look, scan it, and be like, okay, I get what's going on, I can review it, and then they approve it and moves on, because the objective is to get it reviewed. Because sometimes you have to chase people to get your stuff reviewed, which is not fun at all. April?
Yeah, one thing that I've also noticed, which is a little hinky in GitLab or GitHub, is that if somebody's looking at your work commit by commit and they leave a comment on one of the commits versus the overall changes, that comment will live just in that commit. And so that may be what's happening, and where maybe some of those comments are slipping through. And I don't know if when you look at the whole conversation, if those shine through on either the overview or the other one. It's kind of a weird thing. I've found myself many times going, dang it, I left that on the commit, and like changing it and putting it back on the whole conversation to make sure it doesn't get lost.
I just try to check everything. I'm just like, let me just make sure I'm not missing anything.
Yeah.
And it's okay if somebody needs to remind you, and the truth is, I actually didn't see that original comment. Can you please point me in the right direction or something? Because it happens, you know, things sometimes get lost. Awesome.
Should we cover issues now?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, let me know if you don't see my screen. So just want to go onto the project brief. This week, I think it's Connie and Ander, and then Sheila and Nick. So before we go into the issues, Nick, if you get in touch with Sheila and you're not getting, you know, and she's like, I need a pause, then let us know. And then we'll, as a team, try to figure out how to support you in doing the work this week.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so I think we're doing issue 9. As a user, I want to filter my shopping list to make it easier to locate an item in the list. So this is just more of a on the list view. You filter for for items. So you would display a text field above the top of the shopping list. And as a user types into the field, the list should narrow down to display only items that contain the text the user entered into the filter field. When a field has text in it, the user should be able to tap a UI element. And this is just an example of like an X button. You don't have to do X, you can do whatever you feel is more appropriate next to the field so that they could clear it out. So it's almost, yeah, it's like a light search. The filter text should match any part of the item name. It should not only match from the start or the beginning. So if you have, I don't know, cheese pizza, then if you find pizza, it should come up. If you put PI, it should come up too, because that's in between. So I think here's the wireframe for it. So it's here, the filter item, start typing. So as you're typing, let's say you're typing E. So if you do E, then eggs will show up, flutter nutter will show up. I don't know what that is. Secret sauce and jalapenos. I think this is a pretty common filter thing. And then here's an example of one that you can look at for accessibility and screen readers. Any question on this issue? Nope. Okay. So now the next one, 10. So this one's a bit of a hard one. As an item, I want my estimated next purchase date to be computed at the time my purchase is recorded in the database so that the app can learn how often I buy different items. So when a purchase is recorded, the estimated number of days until the next purchase date should be calculated and recorded in the database. So there should be a new field and it should be recorded as the estimate number of days. And then there's a script in the library called estimates.js that will help you do that calculation. Some notes here, you may need to think about the data that is needed as inputs to the function and estimates and how to use the output. It is likely at this point you need to adjust the schema for an item to accommodate the data points required. So I think this is the benefit of Firebase is that you can just add new things to your data structure and not every item need to have the estimate number of days. It can not exist as part of your item until you have an estimate. So I'm going to open that file, the estimates function. It calculates a weighted estimate for the interval until the next purchase. So it takes in 3 arguments. It takes in, the last estimate, which is the last estimated purchase interval. And then the latest interval, the number of days between the most recent and the previously purchased. And then the number of purchases is the total number of purchases for the item. And then it will return the estimated number of days, and this is what you will save in Firebase. Is there any questions on this estimate function, Andrew?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify about the note that we need to change something in the database and looking at how this works. It's like we currently have a purchase interval, which is, from how I guess I've been understanding it, the last estimate.
Mm-hmm.
And then the latest interval would be the number of days since the last purchase date and right now if I'm saving it. So that would be gettable from the last purchase date. Mm-hmm. And then the number of purchases is in the database as well. So I'm not totally clear on what the thing that we're missing is or why we're lacking something.
I think the notes is more confusing than helpful.
Or maybe it's not considering that we did like put these in, because I don't, oh, well, no, we did need to have the purchase interval already. Mm-hmm. So but yeah, I'm just, that's my confusion. It seems to me like we're fine with what we have. Mm-hmm. Are we?
And I think,
am I not
I think
understanding?
You're right.
Okay.
Let me, I'm trying to get to the point where there is, I'm forgetting where we have the data.
I mean, I have like in Firestore, I have it open, if that's helpful.
Yeah, because I'm logged in with my work, this is my work laptop, I cannot get to the Firebase console.
Do you want me to share my screen or take a screenshot or something?
Yeah, you can share it and we can talk more about it. And I'll stop sharing.
So this is basically what we have, for example. So like my understanding is, okay, when you make a purchase, we're going to run this estimate. It's going to say, okay, look at this date, figure out the number of days between the new purchase date before you change it, and then take this purchase interval, which is the last, what is the actual parameter here? The last estimate, and then take the number of purchases, which we have, run it all through that, get an output, and then update the purchase interval to that output of the function and update the date to the now that we've, figured out at the beginning. Like that would be how I would approach this. Just thinking about it quickly, is that, am I missing some big piece of this or not thinking about it correctly?
No, I don't think you're missing anything. I think at the first initial one is like when your first last estimate is your purchase interval. And I think that's where previous teams in the past gets a little confused, where the first time they have to do the estimate, they're like, what is my last estimate? Like, and I think that's the confusing part. You take what the user had given you to start your base as the last estimate. So you're on track on that.
Okay.
Connie, I saw you unmute earlier. Did you have a question, or did this part clear it up?
I was actually about to comment about, I was going to ask about how the notes were written, and I kind of liked how it listed like the parameters and what was returned. I didn't know if that was like a common thing, but I'll probably start doing that because I really like it. So
Doc string.
Yeah,
was
it
it
can be.
It's called a doc string, I believe.
doc stream?
String.
No,
Doc
we just added rules to through our ESLint that require us to do like a JS doc, and it includes the option to put in like parameters, what they are and what they mean.
They are very, very useful when done correctly.
When they're done well.
I have worked at a place where that was not the case, and they were detrimental, I would argue.
Nick?
Yeah, I think you might have just explained it, but I actually haven't seen that before. So is this just saying that like last estimate and last interval and number of purchases are numbers, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I think last cohort, the team had a little mix up, and they did not save the estimate as a number. They saved it as a date, and then it kind of snowballed after that. Yeah. So one thing that I do want to highlight, that when working on these estimates and dates, is it's probably a good time to use a datetime library to help you.
Yeah, I posted a link in my thread to like the moment.js thing used to be a common one to use. I think that there's a lot of a lack of, built-in things to handle this in JavaScript. So there's a bunch of different suggestions and ideas about different alternatives. That might be something we may want to talk about as a team, or maybe make a discussion about, or something.
Does the pair have any opinions on which issues you want to work on?
Sorry, Connie, it looked like Connie had a comment. But
I was on mute. Sorry. I was gonna say we can stay on a few minutes after to talk about the time if you want, Andrew.
Yeah, I think we should give Nick dibs just in case.
Yeah, that's fair, because he ends up solo.
If you have one that calls to you, or you feel like, oh, this one seems like I feel more comfortable tackling.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad since Sheila's not on. I'm like speaking for both of us. I would, if I'm going to be working on my own, I'd feel more comfortable doing the filter.
Cool. And if you need additional support, we can see between 3 mentors whether we have time to pair with you, if that needs to be.
Yeah, I should have some bandwidth this week if you needed to pair for, even if it's just to get like a skeleton of direction and where to go or something.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll reach out to Sheila right after this call and try and see what she wants to do.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, so then so Nick and Sheila would be 9, and then Ander and Connie would be 10. Sounds good.
Yep.
And we're good on time. There's 1 minute left.
We
Is
did
there
it.
anything else? Yeah, I do want to keep us to time because typically in Teams, weekly syncs and such happens. Anything else?
I just want to just briefly kind of reiterate on what you had said during the retro, Yenli, in regards to continuing to work in the open. And again, you guys have all been doing a really great job, but definitely make sure that you are engaging in that way. I had somebody reach out to me asking for information and a referral for an opportunity at my company, and the links and things that they sent from the work that they had done, they were part of groups and projects, but there was no public, they didn't have discussions, they weren't participating in the discussions, they weren't, very few of the commits were in their name. It was really, really hard for me to assess where they were at and to know whether or not I felt confident and comfortable putting that referral through. It is helpful, and it is to your advantage that, you just make sure that your voice is being seen and heard, because you are definitely contributing to this, and we all know that and we all see that, but future people will need that documentation to know that as well. So
yeah, it's very important. Yep, very important to be visible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anything else? Are we good? All right. Have a good week, everybody. We'll be around, so definitely, potentially we're down 1 person, so definitely raise your hands if you need help, and we'll try to jump in the best we can.
I'll put up office hour options tomorrow, so we can figure that out as well.
Great.
All right.
Have a good
I'll
Sunday.
see you all. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.